Good morning, everyone. Excellent this rainy kind of day, but we are delighted to kick off the 2015 More Than the Score season. I'm Cindy Frederick, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Alumni and Parent Engagement and Annual Giving here at the university, and it's my sincere pleasure to introduce you. So now it's my honor to introduce our two speakers today, Jody Lahandra, UVA's Historic Preservation Architect, and Mary Hughes, UVA's Landscaped Architect. Jody manages the work on the university's more than 100 designated historic buildings, including the Academical Village. Previously, he had his own architecture practice in Richmond for 18 years, specializing in historic preservation and restoration. Jody received his Bachelor's of Architecture degree from Virginia Tech and his Master's in Architectural History from the University of Virginia. Mary is a graduate from UVA School of Architecture and guides the university's efforts related to cultural landscape preservation with an emphasis on history and evolution. She is the co-editor of Design with Culture, Claiming Americans' Landscape Heritage, which chronicles the origins of the landscape preservation movement in the United States. Please join me in welcoming Jody and Mary to the kickoff More Than the Score.
There we go. Good morning. Currently, the Rotunda is going through the second construction phase of a project that is costing $58.5 million. We have done a lot. We are halfway through, like I said, and we have done an awful lot in a year. I'm going to take you through a very quick tour of the construction and gives hopefully some time for Mary to do her thing up here. And I will just jump right ahead, but first I find it helpful to maybe remind people a little about the history of the Rotunda, its very troubled past. Of course, it was gutted by fire in 1895. The only elements left of Jefferson's original Rotunda are in red in this cross-section. Immediately afterwards, McKinney & White, the prominent architectural firm in the United States, started the recreation of the Rotunda. Their work is indicated in yellow in this cross-section. The two porticos and the dome is left of their work. And then this is a view that Jefferson never would have recognized. It is from University Avenue. And McKinney & White made a lot of changes with the Board of Visitors' encouragement or direction to add a portico on this side, also wings. In Jefferson's original building, this was the rear yard and the rear of the building. There was a small door and some steps out of it. In the late 1930s, Stanislaus Miskilsky, a professor here, oversaw the renovations of the wings, replaced the terraces and the stairs to the porticos as well as the paving. You see his work in green in this cross-section. And then the Rotunda, of course, was changed by McKinney & White in the interior also. A floor was left out of Jefferson's original plan, and because the library had expanded so much by the late 19th century, they needed more room. And so this monumental library space was created by McKinney & White. But by the late 30s, when the library moved to the new Alderman Library, the university struggled to find things to do with the Rotunda. And this flower show is one event. And so it was about this time that there was a movement to restore Jefferson's interior arrangement. And that resulted in the, again, gutting of the Rotunda, this time man-made, and installing the Jeffersonian interiors with a lot of conjecture for the detailing of that. And you see all of that 1976 work in blue in this cross-section. As you can tell, everything inside was replaced at that time. And the view afterwards of the dome room, note in particular the acoustical metal panels at the inside ceiling of the dome that was put in 1976. So again, to graphically illustrate this is Jefferson's original rotunda. The dome, the two south wings, the portico, all facing the lawn. McKim White added the north portico in 1897, along with the north wings, the colonnades that connected the wings, and then the courtyard gardens created by that connection. Excuse me. The north terrace facing University Avenue, and then filled in afterwards over the years. The first phase of work was completed just over 2 years ago. There was active deterioration of Jefferson's brick walls because of leakage that had been going on for over 20 years. There was not enough money to do the entire project, so we carved out the most important piece, which was replacing the roof. Like I said, that project was completed 2 years ago. Over 4,000 individually cut sheets of copper are on the roof, weighing 6.5 tons. We also, at that time, renovated or repaired the brickwork on the main drum of the building. Note the black bags over the capitals of the south portico and north portico. I'll come back to that. So the second phase of work has started. We've been planning for this for many, many years. Construction began just over a year ago after final exercises, 2015. And they have there are 5 aspects to this work. Finishing the exterior repairs, mostly that's to the wings and the colonnades, replacing the elevator of the main rotunda that has been breaking down frequently, replacing the building systems. This accounts for at least half of the construction, replacing all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, data, cellular phone, sprinkler systems. There's quite a bit. Increasing the usage of the building, and then improving the landscape that Mary will talk about. For the exterior repairs, we have such things as spalling brick, mortar joints, the ornament, top left, that everyone thinks is painted wood is actually sheet copper. The Board of Visitors, after the fire of 1895, directed that the building be fireproofed. So consequently, sheet metal was used for the exterior ornament. The capitals, upper right, as I talked about, they were sheathed or covered in black netting for about 7 years. That's as a result of finding pieces of them on the portico floors. Conservators came in and determined that they were made of a domestic marble, Vermont marble, by McKim White, that was just not as dense as the original capitals and could not be salvaged. The spalling concrete, replacing the elevator before you had to get through it through other rooms. Now you're going to be able to get to the elevator from the central hallway, open to all the public. Mechanical systems were shoehorned into the building in 1976. We had rudimentary systems, constant volume, constant air, that were inefficient and also not conducive to the kind of different uses within the rooms of the building. Also produced mold on the ceiling panels in the dome room. And we studied many different ways of trying to figure out how to add space for new mechanical systems, and that we had to get more space. What we settled on is in the east courtyard, creating an underground mechanical room. Most of the space is mechanical space. We also lowered the east oval room floor to another to create a sub-basement, and this floor and this area is also mechanical space. We then created a tunnel connecting all these spaces, going underneath the colonnade above out to what is a catering parking area over here, and there is an elevator being constructed now that goes between the parking area down to this sub-basement, through the tunnel to a small catering space where they can plug in their dinner trays and the keep them hot, and then when needed, go to the existing elevator that has been extended down one floor. So that's the concept for our design. In terms of improving the building usage, adding classrooms and study space for students was at the top of our list. Opening up the south portico door, enlarging restrooms, updating the visitor center, and in the dome room, replacing those metal ceiling panels with acoustical plaster, opening up the lower gallery for the first time, and using it for study space, and enhancing the support service spaces, in particular the catering support. There are over 200 events in the dome room every year, and catering needs something more than what I'm going to show you. The south portico doors are glass, and they've been closed since '76. We did a trial just before we started our construction work and found out that more than 70% of the people coming to the Rotunda chose to come up this way. So in the changes we're making, this will become a public entrance and used regularly, of course. We had a presidential room with antiques and a velvet rope across from the Board of Visitors room on the second floor. This is going to be converted to a study space that'll have multiple uses, also be able to be used as a meeting room. The gallery, this is the lower gallery in the dome room that has never had access to it since '76 when it was constructed. We are going to add a stair to it and open it up and put tables and chairs and overstuffed furniture in there and hope to encourage students to use it for study space. This is what the catering had to deal with. They would plate behind a screen next to the trash can in the cryptoporticus. This is the only space they had given to them underneath the south stairs, so consequently they used niches in the dome room to store their equipment. All that will be changed. They'll have a large area in which they can take their equipment down and store it in between events. Really the heart of what the university design team loves about this project is adding classrooms. We're having 3 classrooms. We've changed the uses of the south wings from offices, as they were before, to public use and university use. 2 classrooms in the southeast wing, a classroom in the lower west oval room, and then the southwest wing is going to be made into a large multi-purpose space that will have doors put into the windows between the west courtyard and the room itself so we can get combined connected uses. Now begins construction. We get the building after final exercises 2015. First thing we do is put in a building monitoring system. The most important thing about the Rotunda historically is the brick walls that are Jeffersons. Because we knew we were going to be underpinning them to create these underground mechanical spaces, it was essential that we not do any damage to those walls. And to figure that out, we put in a laser monitoring system that hit over 130 different targets on the building at least once every 4 minutes, 24/7, 365 days a year, to know whether or not there was any shifting or movement in those walls. The utilities were a bear. Luckily, we started those right from the beginning. Most of the central ground utilities go right in front. Well, on front, I do the same thing. This is not the front of the Rotunda, it's the rear. Between University and the Rotunda, and we're taking our new utilities perpendicular to it. And we found that the utilities were not where they were shown in the maps, or were not on the maps. And so we had to redesign it. We had to go deeper, we hit rock. It has taken an extra 6 to 8 months to be able to put the utilities in. Fortunately, we're at the end of that. Underpinning was a huge endeavor, and that's how we started last summer and went into last fall. We had over 80 pits to excavate beneath the Jeffersonian brick walls. These pits are about 4 to 5 foot wide. They're over 20 foot deep, and a man gets in the pit with a shovel, and a bucket is given down to him, and it's pulled up on a pulley. I mean, it's not any more sophisticated than that. Pits filled with concrete afterwards, and we do that over 80 times to get underneath all the walls. Shoring is put in around the colonnades and the wings. And then this is a sequence of photos of the construction. You see last December, starting the excavation after all the underpinning's been put in place. And then bottom right, you can see the how far we've advanced. By February, you see the underpinning pits now for the first time. They had to be put in first before you can excavate this out. Just on the other side of this wall, too, we are excavating out at the same time the lower east oval room because we're creating mechanical space there. And then March, we start the concrete structure. The slab is poured in April, and then the topping slab roof is poured and waterproofed. And this is how it is today. We're working off the top of this mechanical space now. And below, this is what we've created or allowed for us to put in. This is all the large mechanical room. This is the air handling unit for the lower 2 floors. And this is the small catering room that we're creating for storage. Again, that small catering room is there, and the large mechanical room is here. And this is the where we are with building the elevator. This is a rendering of what that elevator will look like when it's completed. This is the elevator shaft itself, and there's a outside stair wrapping around it. This view is from the elevator looking down this angled tunnel and then towards a straight part underneath the colonnade. All that will be underground. And as Mary will describe to you, on top of this mechanical room will be a garden. The portico capitals, this is a talk in itself, could last at least an hour. This is a McKim White photo of them raising the marble blocks, putting them in place. A very brave man over here underneath a marble block being raised, and no hard hat. And these blocks stayed in place for about 7 years. They were not carved. The university did not have the money to carve them at that time. It wasn't until 1902 that a gentleman, Williams, out of Richmond, paid to have them carved, and they were carved in situ. This shows, again, the damage that we were experiencing. Our construction manager, Whiting Turner, out of Richmond, identified the capitals of very long lead items, so we got started on them about 9 months before construction actually started. Interviewed a number of firms, and the long and short of it is that we ended up selecting Carrara marble as the marble for the new capitals, the same that Jefferson used for the originals. To prepare for this, let me see if this works. Yes. To prepare for this, we selected Pedrini carvers out of Carrara, Italy, along with Rugo Stone out of Northern Virginia. We gathered all the remnants of Jefferson's original capitals that had been used for paperweights around the university and, door stops and things like that, and gathered them all together. We cleaned the largest extant remnant that we have, which is in the Bailey courtyard, and then the Pedrini carvers came with their scanning equipment and scanned all these elements, knitted those scans together to create a scan of the capital, the original capital, that was about 85% complete. We were missing some elements. We used historic photographs, pre-fire photographs, to get the details from those. We had the design team go over to Pedrini's studio in Carrara about 3 times to study the clay modeling. They would work together during the day to identify problems between the model and the originals. You can see some of the notes here. That night, the carvers would change the clay models. They'd talk about it again the next day. And then finally, we got an approved full capital, which then was carved. We had 16 capitals to do, and that was done with a block of marble being put on a CNC machine, it's called, a robotic arm that operates 24/7. It works for a month and a half to take a block of marble down to about 5% of the completed capital. And you can see what's left behind, these ridges. Then another month and a half to hand carve the finished, completed capital. You can see how it starts here with the block of marble and then the different progressions as we're going along. Even recently, we were sent from students in Italy a magazine article in Italy about the capitals. We can't read it yet, but we hope they say nice things about us. So the comparison is, of course, the McKim White Capitol from Vermont and the new capitals. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're soft. I mean, it's hard to describe, but you touch it and it's actually soft. The shoring of capitals, getting the capitals in place, was a huge engineering challenge. We ended up creating, and I say we in the overall. I didn't. I just attended the meetings. Shoring was installed that then took the weight off of the roof off of the capitals. A track system was created at the level of the capitals that went to then a loading tower over here to the right. And then the old capitals were disengaged from the shaft and the roof, put on a cart, rolled out on the tracks to the tower, and then lifted out of place. Of course, the new are done just the reverse. Loaded into, put onto a cart that is also a structural cage, placed on the loading tower, and then rolled above the column shaft, and then attached to the column shaft, not only with mortar, but we have stainless steel pins also attaching it. The capitals are all in place, all 16. It went very, very well. We have some things that don't go so well, utilities. We have other things that have gone wonderfully. And for a brief moment, they were exposed, but now we've covered them all in boxes and protected them because we're still doing construction above them. And on slides to come, this is the lower cornice, and this is the upper cornice that I'll be talking about. Ornamental sheet metals. I said what people think is wood is actually sheet metal, and it's been quite a challenge. There's damage to it. There's paint buildup. You can see here one of the painted modillion blocks put next to the stripped modillion blocks. This is a mock-up of the stripped sample. That is also the sections are disassembled at the joints, at the original joints between the sections, taken to a shop off-site, stripped of their paint, repaired, primed, and painted, and then brought back in sections. This is a mock-up of us approving the process, and then they are being reassembled on site now. This shows a section that has just been assembled, and then here's a section that has been completed with all the rivets and the repairs painted. The brackets have all been taken out. These are the original cast iron brackets holding up actually the lower cornice. They were installed with bolts into wood plugs in the brick wall. Of course, all the leakage over time, those plugs rotted and the brackets were falling away from the building. We took all those off, sandblasted them, refinished, recoated them, and then installed them with epoxy anchors set into the wall. We painted the roof. This was something that we weren't able to do because of weather. When we replaced the roof, we were able to do it this summer. We had to take the roofing back, scouring it to finished copper, and then it's a two-part epoxy system, Coreflon, that has a 20-year guarantee, and we hope to get even more than that out of it. Not a lot going on here at the North Portico. This is taken recently. The men down lower are repairing the brick walls, or the brick above the capitals and below the pediment, or at the base of the pediment. And the men up top are installing the sheet metal cornice at that upper level. You can see here, this is where the cornice has been removed from the tympanum of the portico, and they're being off-site being stripped. The portico clocks is another separate talk. These are, of course, clocks that date to McKim White, the reconstruction after the fire. And how they exist now are white Roman numerals with actually the hands were wood hands that were solid. After research and also paint analysis of the clock itself, we discovered that there were minute indications on the clock. that the Roman numeral letters were thinner than what is existing today, and that the hands were metal also and had cutouts in them. All that's going to be restored. The biggest surprise was that all this was gold paint. All the letters and the minute hands and minute indications and the hands were gold paint. And at the time, that was felt to be, it reflected when you looked at it obliquely, and it stood out more. So we're going to be restoring the clocks to their original. Inside in the dome, we have taken out the metal, those sheet metal panels. We put in new framing, sound attenuation blankets, and now we're putting in the baseboard for the acoustical plaster ceiling that's going to be going in. The dome room capitals, we, in research, discovered that the plaster capitals that were put in 1976 were inaccurate in some details to Jefferson's. The only interior photographs that we have of the rotunda prior to the fire are in this dome room. And so we do have photographic documentation that we're able to blow up and study. We also discovered that the gentleman who carved these wood capitals was a fellow named Sturtevant in Richmond. And we've gotten his letters, and he complains about not getting paid enough. Some things don't change. We have hired a carver in Richmond who is making the new capitals. We have researched the photographs, have worked with him to create a computer model, and he's now in the process of starting to load that into a CNC machine and start to do the carving. The biggest discovery was that during the research phase, the architects put their heads and got inside of these two little openings in the fireboxes that were discovered in the 1976 work, and actually discovered a chemical hearth. This is the teaching instrument that was used by Dr. Emmett, the first professor of natural history, who taught chemistry in the lower East Oval Room as a laboratory, and then did his lectures in the lower West Oval Room of chemistry. It's and we've hired historians to go back and research our records and records of Dr. Emmett's, and have found such things as his drawing of the kind of instruments he's just purchased in New York to bring to the university to teach chemistry. It is a niche that has 5 different apertures for conducting chemical experiments. The 2 fireboxes where fuel is burned and then transferred to those niches. The fireboxes are connected with underground brick tunnels that bring fresh air to the base of the fireboxes as well as to the apertures. And then in red, there's a system of flues to take away the exhaust of the fires as well as the chemical experiments. A very sophisticated system. The only reason it was saved is because in the 1840s, the chemistry laboratory was moved to one of the wings, and then eventually in 1854 moved to the annex that was constructed. And this was bricked up, and it was essentially sealed and survived the fire and in the 1976 demolition. We have a really rare find here. As far as known, this is the only surviving early 19th century chemical hearth in the world. It will be interpreted, and luckily it's in what's going to be the visitor center, visitor room. And so there will be exhibits in there, and they'll be interpreted for that. A cistern in the east courtyard. We had a map from Pratt that indicated there was a cistern there. We did archaeology ahead of time and indeed found the cistern and even found the names of the workers who had written it in the wet parging on the side of the cistern. And from that was able to trace it to 3 cisterns being constructed for the new annex in the 1854. Such things as debris from the fire found in interstitial spaces in the basement, and other artifacts. This is the north wall of the rotunda, the original north wall, Jefferson's. We knew that stair, we thought it was a masonry stair, and the paint paint indicates that it was actually a wood stair that went up to that rear door. Jason Phillips in 1897, when he raised those blocks of marble, carved his name in the top. And where are we going from here? We're concentrating on the exterior work to the rotunda this fall and winter, early winter. Hope to have it mostly done so that we're not terribly affected by any bad weather this winter. And then the hardscapes for the plaza and courtyards will start early winter, go through the winter into spring, and then landscaping and interior finishes will come after that. We do have a webcam. You can Google Rotunda webcam or else a construction blog. We put that out periodically. And this is a sick ceremony that they used to have before the 1976 work, where they would burn a cake every October 27th to commemorate the 1895 fire. And that's it for me.
Good morning, everyone. Althea asked me to talk about some of the new landscapes that have been built around the university grounds that you might have an interest in walking about and seeing. I don't know how far I will get into that, but I'm going to start with the rejuvenation of the Rotunda landscape as a follow-up to Jody's wonderful talk about the building renovation. So the renovation of the Rotunda has given us the opportunity to rethink the landscape surrounding it. As you saw, the East Courtyard in particular has been largely excavated, and so it needed to be remade into something. We began this process, as we did with the building, by doing historical research about the history of the Rotunda landscape. What we found in doing a cultural landscape report for the academical village as a whole is that although Jefferson would recognize the lawn if he came back for the game today and walked up from, well, he wouldn't recognize, of course, Rouse, Cock, and Old Capitol Hall, but with his back to that and looking towards the Rotunda, he would largely recognize the appearance of the lawn. But he would be very surprised when he arrived at the Rotunda because there has been a lot of change over time. As you see, in the 1850s, there was that annex that burned in 1895, built on the north side of the Rotunda. The landform that we have today, which you see in the slide on the right, is essentially the remains of that, the footprint of that annex. Here is a brief history of the evolution of the Rotunda landscape. As Jody mentioned, if I could get this to work. Oh, I can. In Jefferson's day, this was absolutely the back. And even though University Avenue was then three-notched road, the major road linking the fall line city of Richmond and the rivers of transport to the Western Mountains, Jefferson did not want you to enter the academical village from that north side. He wanted you to come all the way around to the southern end and process up and get that beautiful view of the Rotunda gleaming on the hill up above you. So to that end, he actually designed a number of barriers. There was a stone wall along three-notched road. There were fences along the east and west side. There was, as Jody indicated, just a very small door on the north portico. And then there was a very steep bank down to the landscape at a grade below. But he was not satisfied with that. He planted that with Scotch broom, which is today we think of as an invasive species. All of which to prevent you from accessing the Rotunda from the main roadway in Virginia at the time. So over time, the wings of this area to the east and west of the drum of the Rotunda, he envisioned as being outdoor exercise areas. Eventually, they put a roof and tried to capture that space as indoor space. But really, and then, of course, built the classroom wing of the annex on the north side, starting to recognize that this access from the north was an important port of entry into the university. But really, the rotunda and its courtyards and its terrace on the north side achieved the form that they have today after the renovation of the rotunda in 1895. And so it is essentially a McKim-Mead-and-White construct that we see today. But, as Jody explained to you, we ran out of money at the conclusion of that renovation of the rotunda. And so even though McKim-Mead-and-White had very elaborate garden plans for the rotunda terrace and its courtyards, we had no money to implement those. Now, this is a part of the history of the rotunda that we do not plan to repeat. We intend not to run out of money before we get to the landscape this time around. So, so what we were left with at the conclusion of the rotunda construction was capitals that were uncarved, and a north landscape which Jody showed you was very spare and just had a small a paved area with a small green block that was later filled in with gifts by alumni, the flagpoles and the Thomas Jefferson statue and the sundial that are out on the north terrace. Those were all gifts by alumni to embellish the area. Similarly with the courtyards, the 8 magnolia trees that formerly stood in the courtyards, and this hedge and small green with some paths, those were gifts of alumni to embellish what was left as a very bare area. So we realized that the landscape that came down to us was incrementally derived, a series of small choices, never really a overall design scheme that was implemented. And these spaces were not well used. The magnolias are not a species that you would really pick to put in a small courtyard space, let alone 4 of them in each courtyard. So they had grown up, they were having some impact on the buildings. They were 10 feet away from the building itself, and they made a very shady, kind of unused and unusable space at the ground plane. So we saw the renovation of the building as an opportunity to reimagine the landscape in the spirit of the rejuvenation of the building as a space for the university community to really use and use well and love well in the centuries to come. To do this work, we hired world-renowned landscape architect Laurie Olin, who was the winner not only of UVA's Thomas Jefferson Medal in Architecture, but also the National Medal of the Arts. So very prominent man to come and reimagine our courtyard spaces and the North Rotunda. The East Courtyard is, of course, going to be rebuilt over the top of that mechanical room that Jody showed you, so there will be a relatively shallow depth of soil in this area. This is a courtyard that receives the full morning sun, and so Laurie Olin imagined this as a morning court where you would come and have your cup of coffee and serene space, where you would have some benches, a small water garden in the center, and framed by small trees and shrub beds, relatively quiet, secluded spot. The fountains that are imagined for the 2 courtyards, as you know, there was a fountain in the East Courtyard previously that was broken and was in recent years largely without water. And so we are going to do a new fountain in the Darden Court, which will continue to bear the name of Colgate Darden in the future, but it will be a relatively still pond of water with water plants in it, a small bubbler. And then in the West Courtyard, we're still seeking funding for this, but we're hopeful of having a fountain with more of a splash in the center of the west courtyard, which will continue to bear the name of President Shannon. This is Lori Olin's sketch of the east courtyard and what it will look like after construction. In the west courtyard, as Jody mentioned, this courtyard will be linked by doors to the multipurpose space in the southwest wing of the rotunda. So this we imagine to be a reservable space for events in the future. For that reason, it is largely going to be paved with 4 small hawthorn trees in planters and movable outdoor furniture, tables and chairs that can be moved out of the way when we have events. The big challenge of the rotunda, and this would be a perspective that Lori did of that courtyard, if we are unable to find the funding to do the fountain, we do have an alternate plan for a sandstone paved ornamental center to the courtyard. The biggest challenge with the rotunda landscape was not so much the courtyards and what to do with them, but the north terrace, which was, as you know, a large windswept space that was not used very much by the university community, except, of course, for alumni reunions, dinners, and graduation queuing for graduation, and some diploma ceremonies. So we charged Lori Olin with developing a plan for the North Terrace that would make it usable by the university and Charlottesville community 365 days a year, not just a couple times a year. And so this was the charge that we gave to the landscape architects beginning this work. Lori's assessment of the problems with the North Terrace was that really the small boxwood hedge, which we replaced some 10 years ago so you could actually see the rotunda from the north side, was too small and insignificant to sort of provide a comfortable edge to the large expansive terrace. His lifelong thinking and research and contemplation of public spaces around the world have led him to the conclusion that people feel comfortable occupying a space where they have something at their back, where they feel protected and sheltered in some way. And so he argued that we should have small trees in the planting bed at the North Terrace to frame the outdoor space and give people a comfort level in occupying the space, reading a book, checking their emails, whatever, on a daily basis, so that you wouldn't have to have a big event to feel comfortable in that place. That was a very difficult thing for the university and its Preservation Advisory Committee to accept for a long time. It took a lot of dialogue and a lot of drawings and photographs to try to get the approval to put trees at the front of the rotunda. But that is the plan today, to have small trees that will not grow any higher than the balustrade of the rotunda. They will be deciduous and lightly branching, so you will see through the branches of the trees. You will still see the wings on the rotunda, but it will create a comfortable space for people to occupy. This is a sketch of what it would look like after construction. The tree that is being imagined for this space is a Virginia native fringe tree, beautiful tree, blooms in the spring. With any luck, on some years it will bloom at graduation, but it will be a beautiful new space, and then there will be perennial beds and shrub beds around the trees. And we will also be reclaiming some of the old capitals that were removed from the rotunda to be used as garden ornaments in the new landscape. So they will not be disappearing, they will be reoccupying the rotunda space. So those are the plans that are in place that will start to be implemented this fall with the paving work. I also want to say that we are in the 21st century and the university is committed to goals of sustainability. The rotunda renovation itself is going to be certified LEED building, and the landscape will contribute to that. The paving on the north side of the rotunda is going to be porous paving, and all the rain that falls on that paving will recharge the groundwater and also be watering the beds in the surrounding the paved area. Briefly, some of these other transformative landscapes around grounds that you might want to take a look at. New Cabell Hall Courtyard, another historic preservation project that we're very proud of. New Cabell Hall, many of you went to class there. It was our workhorse classroom building from the 1950s. Colgate Darden chose to build it where he did on the south side of Old Cabell Hall so that people would continue to use the lawn. If they had built the workhorse classroom building in West Grounds, no one would have had a reason to come to the lawn all these years. So that's why the building was located where it was. The courtyard in the past is, as you see it in these photographs, it was just, you couldn't really access it very well, so it was just something you looked out the window at, and it wasn't a terribly attractive space, and certainly not accessible and usable. So with the renovation of the building, we have reactivated the courtyard, providing several doorways into it. The centerpiece of the courtyard actually is this soapstone bench, beautifully wrought bench, designed by a local landscape architecture firm called Sitework Studio. And again, local materials used in the fabrication of the bench, and beautiful space for people to occupy on a daily basis. There is a cafe, a Panera family cafe now in New Cabell Hall that has doors and stairs accessing this courtyard. We also have a big cistern in the courtyard that collects rainwater that we use for watering the plants in the courtyard. One of the sustainable features that we've incorporated here. This building is open today, so if you choose, you will be amazed, for one thing, just walking through the halls of the building at the ability of the architects to introduce natural light into the building, new materials, air conditioning. So it's once it was a sign of the underclass status of the College of Arts and Sciences. Now it is a beautiful, really showplace. So I invite you to stroll through and be amazed at this building and enjoy the courtyard. At night, there's this wonderful lighting, so it's a wonderful place even in the evenings. Totally transforming that unloved and unused space. Similarly, the Arts Grounds has been reimagined with the construction of new studio art building, Ruffin Hall, additions to both the drama building with the Kaplan Theater and the School of Architecture at the top of the hill, Campbell Hall. This big open space also was designed by the firm headed by Lori Olin into a multi-use space that is largely open so that it can be used as a sort of painter's palette for all kinds of collaborative arts activities. One of the first spectacular events that occurred here was Patrick Doherty's on-the-fly sculpture, which some of you in this room may have participated. Over 200 people, both students and Charlottesville community members, worked with Patrick Doherty in claiming the brush that was used in the sculpture and building the sculpture. And it's been standing there for 2 years. I don't know how much longer it will stay, but it is much loved and a great centerpiece and kickoff to the collaborative use of this Arts Ground space. And just a couple weeks ago, we had a big arts open house. Over 600 people came and ate dinner here. President Sullivan strolled through the crowds, and big celebration of the arts, and students signed up for all the various musical groups and drama groups and various clubs that relate to the arts So we see the landscape here as being a symbol of the new rejuvenation of our arts programs here at the university. The Battle Building is the new Children's Hospital at the corner of JPA and West Main Street. And where the Blake Building used to sit on the corner, there is now a beautiful new park that has been put in place, designed by Michael Ferguson. It is a public park for the whole Charlottesville community to use, as well as the families who have children getting treatment at the Children's Hospital. To that end, we have a whimsical mother bear and cubs sculpture, and we have some funding also. We are going to be purchasing more artwork to put in this park on the theme of Lewis and Clark's animal discoveries. And then the hospital green roof, really quickly, another transformational project that you have to be, unfortunately, a patient in a hospital, which I don't recommend if you can avoid that. But if you are a patient, you will enjoy the fact that you no longer look down on this ugly ballasted roof, but instead look at this green abstraction of the Central Virginia landscape with its very own Rivanna River and agricultural fields and Blue Ridge Mountains. So the Rivanna is here made out of beautiful reflective broken glass. So that is the conclusion of my talk. And with whatever time we have, I'm sure Jody and I would be glad to answer any questions.
What do you do if you have to replace a major piece of equipment?
We take it out through the same elevator. We also made sure that the equipment is put in segmental units that can be taken out through the existing or through the openings that we're creating.
And when you ran into the rock, as you're concerned about underpinning the rotunda, how did you fracture that rock?
Most of the rock was actually on the utility side. They use directional borers that actually have rock carvers, part of the device that drives it. They carve through the rock.
And what did one of those capitals cost?
$150,000 just materials.
Yeah.
Haven't even bothered to figure out what it costs to get it up in place.
Right.
But actually, once you figure out, or once you know what they went through to make them, it seems cheap.
It does seem cheap. I know you can't answer this question, but the rotunda was originally copper roof, correct?
No.
It was not.
It was a tin plate. It was a tin-coated sheet iron that was allowed to oxidize, so it oxidized an off-white color.
Okay, so that's why they thought they had to go to white?
Yes. That, and think about it, like Monticello, Jefferson, to create that stepped look, the classical stepped look at the bottom of the dome, he did that out of wood parapets. And certainly they were painted an off-white color.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Speaking both of sustainability and preserving the historic material, historic meaning also post-Jefferson, I'm concerned about the older capitals being put out in the open landscape and deterioration thereof, and one or more will be saved in a far more secure environment, I suppose?
We are saving 2 of them, the 2 best examples for posterity, putting them in a climate-controlled area for saving them, and then 4 are being put outside. Another one is being donated to the A School. They have asked for one over there.
And one of them is has just been put at the new O'Neill Hall, former faculty apartments on Rugby Road. That has just been put in place.
And so development has the rest of them, and we just ask development to make sure you pay for shipping and handling.
I see that the projections go beyond graduation next spring, but I'm wondering what the anticipated situation is for graduation.
I'm glad you asked that. I meant to say that. We are working, that's why actually I showed you on the graph that most of the exterior work we're hoping to get done by this winter so that we won't be too affected by a bad winter. We are working and doing everything we can to have the scaffolding down and have the fencing down from around the rotunda so that it can be processed by the graduates' next final exercises. There will still be work going on probably inside the building. We'll have landscaping probably will still be going in. We'll have other things that are being done. But we're going to have all the stuff taken down, so the photographs will show it just fine.
Yeah, when you removed the old capitals, did you have to jack up the roof?
We took the roof up just enough to be able to disengage them, but we also had to replace the steel beams above those old capitals. They were all rusted, and we replaced those, and so we had to take some of that architrave, well, some of the bearing from just above the capital. So that gave us...
He had to cut some of the pins.
Yeah, well, actually, there were no pins.
Oh.
We were surprised to find out that just gravity and the good Lord was keeping them there in place.
I have both a landscape and an architecture question. Does Jefferson's notes speak to anything that you're doing on grounds in the landscape? And then my other question is, are the columns going to be sandstone or white?
Well, Jefferson certainly was a great gardener and horticulturist. By the time the Rotunda was being finished and the Academical Village construction was finishing up, unfortunately, Jefferson was in his final years, and so the construction wasn't even finished at the time that he died. So he did not leave the kind of detailed description of what he intended for the landscape at the university that he did for Monticello over many years, or Poplar Forest. We have a letter where he talks about the lawn, and he describes it as lawn and trees, grass and trees. We don't even know whether the trees got planted before he died. We have not found any record to indicate that. We know that the first trees on the lawn were black locusts, and that they were in place and already dying by the 1830s, so very early on, certainly. But so the landscape, he did designate the serpentine walls around the gardens, but not any particular landscape treatment for the interior of those gardens. He left that to the professors.
And in terms of the column shafts, they're going to be off-white, the same color as the cap, as the dome and the trim on the building. And that color was determined through paint analysis of the McKim white period. And so they will be off-white.
Last question.
I work here at the university. I work at Central Brown, so I know a lot of this stuff, just being here for 13 years, close to 13 years. So I've seen a lot of changes. But my question to you is, after the landscape plant material is put in, you talked about sprinklers that are going to be put in. Okay.
There'll be a sprinkler system in the east courtyard because of the shallow ground level. We need to do something there.
Okay.
Yeah, there will not be irrigation for any of the landscape that is built at grade on original soil.
Okay, so I know that there isn't any spigots or anything like that on the outsides of the building.
There will be.
There will be?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Good.
Yes. There were memorial tablets on the walls of the rotunda, both on the lawn side as well as the north side. Were they left in place during reconstruction, and will they be there when it's over?
They're in place now. They were preserved and I forget the term for it, but they were treated by conservators, protected, and now we have boxes protecting them from the construction activity. And gentleman here.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. This is really excellent. In terms of the exterior construction, what's your expectation in terms of length? That'll be
end of July next summer.
No.
Oh.
The length in which it will remain as is the next major renovation.
That was quite a long, 100 years or more. Now the roof, that'll probably need to be repainted in 30 years. But the things that are going to be replaced are the systems. You know that everyone has an iPhone, how quickly those change. So we're making sure that the equipment that we're putting in can be taken out and replaced. Things that are in the wall, wires, pathways, they're all being done with conduits, so we can replace those systems without having to tear up the walls. All that has to be done nowadays so that you can get in there and replace that stuff. Yeah, but in terms of the physical building itself, yes, a long, long time.
I just want to say thank you to both of our speakers, and on behalf of Lifetime Learning and the Alumni Association, we have a small gift.
Oh, I thought I was going to get a hat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.